I was just trying to grab a pack of paper towels. That's all. A normal, boring Wednesday evening run to Walmart. I had no idea I was about to witness an event that would sear itself into my brain forever. The store was its usual chaotic self, kids screaming, carts clogging up the aisles, and that one dude who always seems to be talking on speakerphone like he's got stock market deals to close. I was weaving through the madness when I heard it. E.D. Ward. At first, I thought maybe someone had lost their child. Or maybe some dude named Edward was about to get tackled by security. Either way, it piqued my curiosity. I turned my head, and that's when I saw them, two women, both large, both pale, and both wearing Twilight merch like they were part of some ancient order. What I didn't know at that moment was that I was about to witness the Walmart Twilight Civil War. I should have just kept walking. I should have grabbed my paper towels and left like a responsible adult. But no, curiosity got the better of me, and I lingered. The two women were facing off in front of a giant pallet of discounted DVDs, fists clenched, nostrils flaring. One had a stretched-out Team Edward hoodie that had clearly seen some battles. The other? A Team Jacob t-shirt that was struggling to contain her rage. E.D. Ward is superior, screamed hoodie. Jacob was there for her, you ignorant swine, shouted t-shirt. A Walmart employee, some poor kid barely out of high school, stood nearby clutching a pricing gun, looking like he was debating whether this was above his pay grade. It was. And then it happened. Hoodie shoved t-shirt hard. A gasp rippled through the nearby shoppers. Someone whispered, "Oh, hell no." A guy in a camouflage vest whipped out his phone, because of course he did. The pushing escalated. Slaps were exchanged. This was no longer a disagreement. This was war. And I was a helpless bystander. At this point, I had two choices: walk away like a responsible adult or stay and witness whatever madness was about to unfold. Naturally, I stayed. T-shirt recovered from the initial shove and retaliated with a wild, open-palm slap to Hoodie's shoulder. Not the face, just the shoulder, like she was warming up. Hoodie gasped, staggered back a step, and then came back swinging. And I mean swinging. She went for the classic I have no formal training windmill slaps, her arms flailing like inflatable tube men outside a used car dealership. The sound of flesh smacking flesh echoed through the store. A toddler in a nearby cart started crying. T-shirt shrieked and charged, tackling Hoodie into a display of $5 movie bins. The metal frame wobbled, DVDs scattered, and somewhere in the chaos, Breaking Dawn, Part 2 went sliding across the floor like it was trying to escape this nonsense. "You take that back about Jacob." T-shirt howled. "Never. He's a homewrecker." Hoodie screeched. "The Walmart employee? Long gone." My dude had seen enough and dipped. Meanwhile, I was still frozen in place, clutching my pack of Bounty like it was a shield. People were gathering. Phones were out. This was about to go viral. And somehow, it was only getting worse. At this point, it was no longer a simple disagreement, it was a full-blown, poorly coordinated, rage-fueled WWE match. Hoodie, now red-faced and breathing like a steam engine, grabbed a nearby Hunger Games DVD and chucked it at T-shirt's head. She missed by a solid foot, but the message was clear: we were past words. This was war. T-shirt retaliated by grabbing the closest weapon she could find, a Twilight-themed water bottle from a clearance shelf, and launching it like a grenade. It smacked Hoodie in the shoulder, causing her to stumble back into a rack of discounted Valentine's Day candy. Chocolate hearts and broken dreams scattered across the floor. By now, a full-blown audience had formed. A mom with 3 kids was recording, narrating like she was a sports commentator. Some dude in a trucker hat shouted, "World Star," and I realized I was witnessing internet history in real time. But then came the moment that truly sent this into legendary status. Hoodie, desperate to prove Edward's superiority, went for the ultimate power move. She reached down, grabbed an economy-sized bag of frozen hash browns from a cart, and launched it. Now, I don't know if you've ever been hit by a 5-pound bag of frozen potatoes, but let me tell you, T-shirt felt every ounce of those icy carbs. The bag struck her in the gut with a dull thwomp, forcing the air from her lungs. She wheezed, doubled over, and for a split second, I thought this might be the end. But no. This was only the beginning. T-shirt took a few seconds to process that she had just been assaulted with frozen breakfast food. Her face twisted in rage, and she let out this unholy battle cry, part scream, part wheeze, all fury. I don't know what she was planning, but she bent down, grabbed the bag of hash browns off the floor like it was Excalibur, and lunged at Hoodie with vengeance in her eyes. This was the exact moment Walmart security finally decided to intervene. Now, if you've ever been to a Walmart, you know security is usually just some exhausted dude in a blue vest who barely looks up from his phone. But today? Today, they sent in the big guns. A real security guard emerged from the depths of the store, radio in hand, looking like he had seen things. His name tag said Gary, and Gary had the walk of a man who was 24 hours from retirement and over it. Gary took one look at the chaos, the scattered DVDs, the broken candy display, the hash brown carnage, and sighed the heaviest sigh I have ever heard in my life. "All right, break it up," he said, completely dead inside. T-shirt, still gripping the bag of hash browns, turned to face him like a wild animal caught in headlights. Hoodie had somehow acquired a Funko Pop box, ready to use it as a projectile. Neither seemed willing to surrender. Gary, sensing this, reached for his radio. That's when I knew things were about to escalate even further. Gary, the weary Walmart security guard, pressed the button on his radio with the energy of a man who had been through way too much nonsense in his lifetime. "I need backup and entertainment." "We got, he trailed off, looking at the scene before him. Situation." As if on cue, Hoodie launched the Funko Pop. Now, I don't know if she meant to hit T-shirt or if her rage threw off her aim, but the box sailed right past her and smacked a completely innocent bystander, a dude in a Bass Pro Shops hat who had just been minding his own business in the snack aisle. The dude blinked. Looked at the empty Funko Pop box on the floor. Looked at Hoodie. And that's when I knew we were so beyond the original Twilight debate. "Ayo, what the hell?" Bass Pro Hat yelled. Gary sighed again, a long, pained sigh. He pulled out the most powerful weapon in his arsenal, his Walmart authority voice. "Last warning. Drop the hash browns." T-shirt, still clutching her icy weapon, hesitated. She was breathing hard, looking between Gary and Hoodie like she was deciding whether this war was worth dying for. Meanwhile, Hoodie, possibly realizing she had just assaulted a stranger with a Funko Pop, was shifting into full retreat mode. "Look, she started it," Hoodie whined, pointing at T-shirt. "She said Edward was toxic." "I mean, he was." T-shirt shrieked. Bass Pro Hat, still rubbing his head, muttered, "Man, I don't even know these people." And then, because Walmart has no rules, an announcement came over the store intercom. "Attention Walmart shoppers, free samples in the deli." And like that, half the crowd started to disperse. But for Gary, this was far from over. For a moment, everything was still. Hoodie, now fully aware she had accidentally declared war on a random Bass Pro Hat guy, looked like she was contemplating running for it. T-shirt, still gripping the frozen hash browns like a medieval war club, was breathing heavily, deciding if this was truly the hill she wanted to die on. And Gary? Gary was just done. "Okay," he said, rubbing his temples. "Let's break this down real simple. One of y'all threw a Funko Pop. One of y'all is holding frozen food like a weapon. And I'm not filling out paperwork today." But before he could finish his speech, Hoodie made her move. She bolted. Like an uncoordinated, rage-fueled gazelle, she turned on her heel and took off, knocking over a display of jumbo-sized goldfish crackers in her escape. Bright orange snack crackers scattered across the floor like confetti at a chaotic parade. "Oh, hell no." Gary groaned, yanking his radio back up. "We got a runner." The remaining bystanders watched as Hoodie disappeared down an aisle, her oversized Team Edward hoodie flapping behind her like a poorly designed superhero cape. T-shirt, still gripping the hash browns, looked between me, Bass Pro Hat, and Gary. Then, with the slow realization that her opponent had abandoned the battlefield, she muttered, "That's what I thought." She dropped the bag of hash browns with a final thud, turned on her heel, and strutted away like she had just won an actual duel. "And me?" I was still standing there, gripping my paper towels, wondering how my simple Walmart trip had turned into the Battle of Forks, Washington. So there I was, standing in the aftermath of the most unhinged battle I had ever witnessed inside a Walmart. Hoodie had fled. T-shirt had declared herself the victor. Gary looked like he was actively reconsidering his entire career. And me? I was still clutching my paper towels like they could somehow protect me from the sheer stupidity of the situation. Then Gary's radio crackled. Gary? We got some lady in a vampire hoodie sprinting through frozen foods. Gary closed his eyes for a long moment. Yeah. That's ours. Another voice came through, she just knocked over a whole end cap of Hot Pockets. Should we do something? Gary sighed the biggest sigh yet. Yeah. On my way. He turned, giving me and Bass Pro Hat a tired nod, like we were fellow survivors of some great tragedy. Then he stomped off, ready to track down Hoodie before she destroyed more of Walmart's frozen goods section. Meanwhile, T-shirt was still casually browsing, as if she hadn't just tried to commit aggravated assault with hash browns. Bass Pro Hat shook his head. Man, I just came in here for some Mountain Dew. Same, I muttered, still in shock. Except my mission had been paper towels. Now I wasn't even sure I wanted them anymore. And yet, I couldn't leave. Because something told me this wasn't over yet. At this point, I should have left. I should have taken my paper towels, walked to self-checkout, and gone home like a normal human being. But no. I had witnessed too much. I was invested now. So, like any logical person, I casually followed in the direction Hoodie had run just to see how this would play out. By the time I got to the frozen foods section, it looked like a tornado had ripped through it. A whole shelf of Hot Pockets was scattered across the floor like fallen soldiers. Some poor employee with a mop stood frozen, staring at the chaos with dead eyes. And there, cornered between a deep freezer and a rollback sign, was Hoodie. She was breathing heavily, gripping the edge of the freezer like a trapped animal. Gary stood a few feet away, hands on his hips, looking so done with everything. All right, he said. Let's be adults. You coming with me, or am I gonna have to call actual cops? Hoodie's eyes darted around, looking for an escape route. But there was none, just rows of frozen pizzas and a very exhausted security guard standing between her and freedom. And then she did the most unhinged thing yet. She reached into the freezer and grabbed a family-sized bag of frozen peas. She raised it above her head like it was Mjolnir, as if she was going to fight her way out with frozen vegetables. The Walmart employee with the mop gasped. Gary took a slow step forward. I held my breath. This was it. Hoodie's last stand. For a second, nobody moved. Hoodie stood there, frozen peas raised above her head like she was about to summon the powers of Thor. Gary didn't even flinch. He just stared at her, his soul visibly leaving his body. Ma'am, he said, in a tone so lifeless it could haunt a house. If you throw those peas, I swear to God. She threw the peas. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a family-sized bag of frozen peas explode on impact, but let me tell you, it's majestic. The bag hit the floor like a grenade, bursting open in a spray of tiny green orbs. The peas scattered everywhere. It was like someone had just released 1,000 hyperactive marbles into the wild. Gary took a slow, deep breath through his nose. A pea rolled against his shoe. He stared down at it, then back at Hoodie, who looked wildly pleased with herself. You're coming with me, he said, his voice a whisper of pure, exhausted rage. But Hoodie wasn't done yet. Because as Gary stepped forward, he slipped. His foot hit a patch of rogue peas, and suddenly, Walmart's most underpaid enforcer was going down. And not just a normal fall. No, this was a full, slow-motion, arms flailing, straight-up movie scene fall. His radio flew out of his hand. His vest flapped dramatically. He made direct eye contact with me as he went down, like he wanted me to tell his story. And then, boom. Gary hit the tile, sliding a few inches on his back, defeated by the most unexpected weapon of all time, frozen vegetables. The store fell dead silent. And Hoodie? She ran. In that moment, time seemed to stretch. I watched as Gary flailed on the floor, completely defeated by the frozen pea invasion. Hoodie, realizing her one shot at freedom had just presented itself, took off, and she booked it. Her Team Edward hoodie flared behind her like a cape as she sprinted down the aisle, narrowly dodging a confused shopper who was trying to grab some butter. I stood there, frozen in place, still clutching my paper towels like they were the only thing keeping me grounded in reality. The scene before me was something out of a fever dream. Gary, still on the floor, muttered something under his breath. I couldn't quite hear it, but I'm sure it was a prayer to the Walmart gods. The poor employee with the mop looked up from the mess of peas, their eyes wide with panic. Should we stop her? Gary, still on the ground and struggling to get up, just shook his head slowly. Let her go. I can't chase anyone today. And just like that, Hoodie was gone, vanishing into the labyrinth of aisles that would forever be her kingdom. I'm sure she left a trail of peas in her wake, a signature of chaos. As for me? I stood there, utterly speechless. Part of me wanted to just walk out, buy my paper towels, and pretend none of this had happened. But a much bigger part of me knew that this was a story for the ages. The dust began to settle, or rather, the peas. Walmart was now an apocalyptic landscape, with peas scattered across every corner, a handful of DVDs abandoned on the floor, and the remnants of a candy display still scattered like casualties of war. Gary, after what felt like an eternity, managed to get up, dust himself off, and stumble over to his radio. He clicked the button. Yeah, we're gonna need a cleanup crew at Frozen Foods, and maybe some backup. I've been taken out by frozen peas. There was a pause. A crackle on the other end. Then the response. Are you okay? Gary stared at the mess, sighed heavily, and said, I'm fine. But I'm going to need a vacation. I couldn't help but laugh. I wasn't sure whether to feel sorry for him or to salute him for holding it together as long as he had. Honestly, I don't know how he wasn't in the fetal position by now. I finally snapped out of my daze and walked to self-checkout, still clutching my paper towels. The experience had been too much. I was mentally drained from witnessing a full-on Twilight-induced brawl, and I was ready to go home and pretend I hadn't just participated in something that would haunt me forever. As I scanned my items, carefully avoiding eye contact with anyone, I heard the intercom crackle again. Attention Walmart shoppers, please refrain from throwing frozen peas at employees. Thank you for your cooperation. I couldn't help but snicker. As I stood at the self-checkout, scanning my items one by one, I tried to process what had just happened. My brain was struggling to make sense of it all. Was this real? Was I still in the middle of some bizarre dream? I glanced around the store, people were still shopping, but there was an odd tension in the air. A few employees looked shell-shocked, as though they had witnessed something they'd never fully recover from. Others were just moving like zombies, pushing their carts with mechanical precision, trying to ignore the chaos that had unfolded. I even saw a kid picking up a rogue bag of frozen peas from the floor and tossing it back into the freezer like it was some normal day at Walmart. That's when it hit me, life, in all its randomness and absurdity, really doesn't care. Here I was, just a guy trying to buy paper towels, and I had stumbled into a conflict between two Twilight superfans that would go down in the annals of Walmart history. I would probably tell this story for years, and people would either laugh or give me that "you're exaggerating" look. But I knew the truth. This was real. I had been a witness to the ultimate battle of fandoms, a literal clash of titans over fictional characters, and a pack of frozen peas had been the weapon of choice. As I grabbed my bag and stepped away from the checkout, I couldn't help but chuckle. Life had a funny way of throwing curveballs. One minute, you're thinking about nothing but paper towels, the next, you're watching a security guard get taken out by frozen food, and a woman with an Edward Cullen hoodie is running for her life. I made a mental note, next time, just order the paper towels online. As I made my way out of the store, the weight of what had just happened began to sink in. I couldn't help but replay every single moment in my head, the loud screams of E.D. Ward echoing through the aisles, the chaos of flying Funko Pops, the frozen peas that seemed to bring the entire situation to a standstill. It was like a fever dream. I was halfway to the door when I realized something. In the middle of all this madness, I had learned something about myself. I had spent the entire episode trying to keep a distance from it, trying to be the observer, the guy who just wanted his paper towels and to go home. But somewhere between witnessing the slap fights and dodging frozen peas, I had felt a strange pull. I wasn't just watching the insanity from the sidelines. I was part of it, whether I liked it or not. It dawned on me that life was weird, wild, uncontrollable, and completely unpredictable. You can have a plan, you can try to keep your head down, but sometimes the universe has other plans for you. Sometimes, you're just the poor soul who stumbles into something so bizarre that you can't help but become a part of it. I walked outside into the parking lot, the cool evening air hitting my face. The streetlights flickered above, and the world seemed to go back to normal, like nothing had ever happened. I laughed to myself. What the hell just happened in there? But I had to admit it, I had survived it. And maybe, just maybe, I had learned to expect the unexpected. I made my way to my car, still shaking my head at the absurdity of it all. As I tossed my paper towels into the passenger seat and slid into the driver's side, something funny occurred to me. I had just witnessed one of the most bizarre things to ever happen in a Walmart, and I had somehow come out of it with a story that would follow me for the rest of my life. But there was something deeper I took away from that wild experience, something I hadn't fully processed in the chaos of flying DVDs and hash browns. It wasn't about the fight itself or the frozen peas, it was the realization that sometimes we get so caught up in our day-to-day routines, in the predictable flow of life, that we forget how strange the world can really be. Life doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about your routine or the way you think things should go. One minute you're trying to grab some paper towels, and the next, you're ducking flying frozen food and watching grown adults fight over a fictional vampire. And in a way, I think that's kind of beautiful. It's in the unexpected moments that you really feel alive. Sure, I would have preferred a less dramatic trip to Walmart, but that's not how life works, is it? Sometimes you need to get thrown into the chaos, to witness the ridiculousness, to remind you that anything can happen at any given moment. As I drove away from that parking lot, I thought about the people involved, the women, Gary, the poor employee with the mop, and I felt strangely connected to it all. Like, yeah, I didn't ask for any of this, but I was a part of it. And in some weird, inexplicable way, that was enough. I'd probably never look at a bag of frozen peas the same way again. But I'd also never forget that wild, unexpected adventure that reminded me to embrace the absurdity. And that's the lesson, right? Sometimes, you don't need to understand it all, you just need